All right, let's jump right in. When you open the Gospel of John, you might think you're just getting a biography, another story about a person's life. But it's not that at all. It's actually built more like a legal case, a really persuasive argument. It's like the author is a prosecutor, laying out all the testimony, calling up witnesses, and presenting pieces of evidence, all to convince you of one single massive claim.
So the book doesn't open in a stable in Bethlehem. Not at all. It opens in the vastness of space and time, maybe even before time. The very first piece of evidence isn't a person. It's this huge idea, a divine being the author calls the Word. This is a big philosophical opening statement, and it's designed to set the stage for everything that's about to follow.
Now, that key term, the Word, is logos in the original Greek. And for the people reading this back then, logos was a huge concept. It meant the divine reason, the logic, the creative power that kind of holds the whole universe together. But then the author does something really radical. He takes this abstract idea and says, nope, it's not an it's a him, it's a person.
And here it is. This is the bombshell. This is the foundational claim of the entire book. The author says that this cosmic, eternal, divine Word became a human being, a specific guy named Jesus, who walked around on earth. You have to keep this in mind. Everything else we're going to see is just evidence laid out to prove this one staggering idea.
So with that main claim on the table, the author calls the very first witness to the stand. And it's not a disciple or a family member, no. It's this fiery, kind of wild prophet who's been making a lot of noise out in the desert, a guy named John the Baptist.
The religious leaders back in Jerusalem, they start hearing about John and his ministry. And, well, they're getting a little nervous, so they send a whole delegation out to question him, to cross-examine him. And their first question, in that classic old phrasing, is just straight to the point. Who are you? They want to know if he's the Messiah, the Christ, that they've all been waiting for.
John's answer here is absolutely key to his role as a witness. The text really emphasizes that he doesn't beat around the bush. His main job is to make it crystal clear who he isn't. He's not the main character here. He's just the opening act, pointing all the attention away from himself and onto somebody else.
And then he does it. The very next day he sees Jesus and he delivers his sworn testimony. He gives Jesus this incredibly powerful symbolic title and he points him out to his own followers. So for us, the reader, the jury, if you will, the case is now officially begun. The defendant has been identified in the courtroom.
All right, so now the case starts to build. The next form of evidence isn't spoken testimony, it's more like physical exhibits. The author presents a whole series of miracles, but he calls them signs. And that's really important. They're not just random acts of power. Each one is a carefully chosen piece of evidence designed to prove who Jesus is.
And you start to see a really clear pattern here. The signs escalate. They get bigger and bigger. It starts with turning water into wine, an act of abundance, of creative power. Then it moves to healing a man who was born blind, an act of creating something that was never there to begin with. And finally, it all culminates in the raising of Lazarus, a straight-up demonstration of power over death itself.
You know, when the authorities try to grill the man who was healed, he doesn't get into some deep theological debate. He gives this simple, direct, and frankly, irrefutable testimony from his own experience. And that's what makes these signs so powerful in the story. They create eyewitnesses whose experiences just can't be denied. And that, in turn, creates this huge and growing conflict with the people in charge.
So we've had witnesses, we've had physical evidence, and now the author presents the most controversial evidence of all, Jesus' own testimony about himself. And it's these claims that really ignite the central conflict of the story, splitting everyone who hears them into two camps.
All through the book, Jesus makes these profound I am statements. And these aren't just pretty metaphors. That phrase, I am, is a direct echo of how God identifies himself in the Hebrew Scriptures. So when Jesus says these things, he's making an explicit, unmistakable claim to be divine. And the cause and effect here couldn't be clearer. When Jesus makes his most direct claim, I and my Father are one, the reaction is immediate, and it's violent. They don't hear it as some deep spiritual truth. They hear it as blasphemy, and blasphemy was a crime punishable by death. The battle lines are officially drawn.
So the author frames this whole conflict in these really stark moral terms. The rejection of Jesus isn't presented as just a simple disagreement over theology. No, it's framed as a deliberate choice. A choice to embrace darkness over the light that has come into the world. And that kind of puts you, the reader, on the spot. You have to make a choice too.
So the argument has hit its boiling point. The witnesses have testified, the evidence has been shown, and the defendant's own words have basically led to a death sentence. And now the author presents the final and most important piece of evidence in the entire case.
The story just barrels towards its end. The Last Supper, the crucifixion, the resurrection, they're all presented as the ultimate sign. When Jesus cries out, "It is finished," it's not meant as a cry of defeat. It's a declaration that the testimony is complete. The resurrection, then, is offered up as the stunning, undeniable proof for every claim he ever made.
But wait, the case isn't quite closed. The author introduces one last character who basically represents the ultimate skeptic, the disciple Thomas. He's the juror who's still not convinced. He wasn't there, he didn't see it, and he refuses to believe just because his friends told him so. He demands cold, hard, physical proof.
And when Jesus appears and offers him that exact proof, all of Thomas's doubt just instantly collapses into belief. His declaration, "My Lord and my God," is the theological climax of the entire gospel. The ultimate skeptic is finally convinced by the evidence, and he delivers the very verdict the author has been arguing for this whole time.
And this is the moment. It's like the author finally steps out from behind the curtain and tells you exactly why he wrote this book. This isn't just a collection of stories. It's a carefully selected set of signs and testimonies, all written for one specific reason: to persuade you, the reader, to believe.
So, in the end, this whole book is a courtroom drama, presented for you. It lays out the witness statements, the physical evidence, and the defendant's own claims. It even shows you the skeptic who is finally convinced. And then, it rests its case. It leaves you, the reader, sitting in the jury box to decide. So the only question left is, what's your verdict?